You can hear me? I think so. Okay, hello everyone. Welcome to.
Yeah, it's unmuted.
Yeah, sweet. Yeah, welcome to our user group. It's been a while since we had the last in-person meetup. Thank you all for coming. It's kind of a rare situation. We don't get this capacity of speakers down. So thank you all for coming and speaking in our event. Before we start, I just wanted to talk about Leila. She was founder and one of the people who run this user group. So unfortunately, she passed away. We are not with us anymore, but me, David, and Indira downstairs, we are here to help if you have any questions. Right, so today we have 5 people from the CAT customer advisory team of Fabric joined us. Patrick all the way from Atlanta, Phil all the way from Wellington. And Amanjeet, Darren, and Mimoune, you are all 3 in Australia, right? Yeah. Okay. So I'll let them to introduce themselves. You'll enjoy their sessions. Who we are, it used to be called Microsoft BI user group. Back in the days, we had a lot of like SSIS sessions, SQL Server sessions, started in August 2012. Nowadays, we have a lot of sessions related to Power BI, Microsoft Fabric. So we call ourselves Fabric Power BI Analytics user group. Our speakers are from Microsoft team, MVPs, local community experts. We usually have 1 meetings a month. Our user group is like about 3,500 members at the moment, which is great. How many of you are have been in our meetups before? Okay, that's more than half. And newcomers today, time. Okay, thank you. Welcome to our user group. So if you have any questions about this user group, find David. David, raise your hand. Find David or me or Indira, who's down the stairs at the moment. Some housekeeping. Make sure that put your phone on silent. If you want to use the bathroom, you need the key, like that key. Otherwise, you can't get back in. You have to walk all the way downstairs, and then you have to your code, come there back, but then the elevator doesn't work. So don't go to bathroom if you don't use that. Fire exit, I think, will go all the way down here, and then where the Sofitel is, I think that is the assembly point. Correctly. Recon used to be here before. Is that assembly point?
And the courtyard, yeah.
Okay.
Outside the building's always good.
Yeah, outside of the building. Okay. Some upcoming events. So the next month we have Daniel. Where is Daniel? Daniel here is coming all the way from Christchurch and talking about visualization with Dennis, which is quite cool. Definitely come for that. 1st of May, we have the dates already for that. We are going to have an Analytics Friday, which is a free day event. We had it not last year, the year before. It's a free event, multiple sessions. We don't have the dates yet. It is going to be in July, possibly June. We'll let you know what time it is. Is it free for everyone to attend? It is possibly going to be in either Otago University or Auckland University. We'll see. But we'll let you know, and we'll announce it in the meetup. And thanks to our sponsors, Microsoft for the room and Redecat for the food and pizza. And that's pretty much it. I'll hand it over to the fantastic 5 speakers.
Oh, thank you, Reza. And thanks everyone for coming. It's a pleasure to be here, especially very nice for me to be able to bring so many of my colleagues to New Zealand to actually present to the group here. I mean, everyone knows Patrick, so it's especially nice for that. What we're going to be talking about tonight. So Fabric, Microsoft Fabric, we announced around this time last year. It went GA around October last year. Hopefully many of you have at least heard of Fabric. But last week in the US, we had our very first Fabric conference, the inaugural Fabric conference, very, very big. It was actually a lot more people than I was expecting for a short notice event to get put together. And in that session, we had a lot of news, a lot of announcements. So what we kind of want to do tonight is share a lot of those updates and announcements with you, because I kind of assume most of you at least have heard of Fabric. But out of curiosity, how many are using Fabric in some form at the moment in your workplace? There's a few. Okay, that's cool. Hopefully this time next year when we come back, there'll be a lot more hands. What else did I want to cover? So for the agenda tonight, what we're going to do is, first of all, hear from Patrick, because I think that's what probably most of you have come to see in person, which is great. He's going to cover really the big announcements that we made in the in Fabric. He's going to cover across the 4 pillars and just dive a little bit into each. Then we're going to have Darren do a little bit of a showcase on some of the various and interesting ways that you can get data into Fabric, and surprising how many options you've got there, which is cool. Jeet's going to be covering security, one of the most important things that most people want to hear about. We might have time for another couple of showcases. We will set aside time for Q&A as well. So we'll be able to get 5 of us up here and you can just throw random questions, hopefully mostly Fabric related to us, and we'll do our best to answer. And we might have a couple of Copilot videos at the end, just to give you the latest what's from the Fabric conference. The other thing about the Fabric conference is we have already announced the dates for next year. So the 1st, 2nd and 3rd of April, it's going to be in Las Vegas again. So if you can find any excuse to get over there for that week, I assure you won't be disappointed. It's good fun. And there will be a lot more of us. But if you can't make it to the Fabric conference next year, we do plan to come back to Auckland probably the week or 2 after and do the same thing. We'll bring all the good news and updates and information from the conference. And depending on how well Patrick goes, we might bring him back or we might replace him with Adam instead.
Look at
Depending on how he
why
goes.
not have both?
Well, potentially that might happen, but certainly Adam's wife was pinning me down when she could last week, organising Hobbiton and various other things to do when they come. So watch the space anyway. But I won't go on any more than that. What I want to do is hand over to Patrick, who can tell us all the exciting things that got announced last week. So
Hey, made me hide most of my slides, so I only have like 15 minutes because he said I went too long this morning.
he didn't go too long, but
Yeah, and so one of the things that Roon talked about last week was he was like, whenever you go talk about Fabric and everything that's going on, you got to thank the community. So thank you all for everything that you do, for being here tonight, taking the time to out of your busy schedule, because I know it's not easy, family and children, stuff like that. So we appreciate you. Your little user group is down there. It's actually a big user group.
On the map,
On
that's
the map, on the map, right? The DP600 is free up until April 19th if you want to give it a go.
so what's this exam?
I don't know what this exam is, but it's something.
If you pass it, you get certified in
You
Fabric.
get certified, yeah.
Okay, so it's free for now.
So
Fabric
April
data
19th.
engineer.
Say it again.
Fabric data engineer.
Fabric data engineer.
Probably a good one to have on your resume.
Yeah.
Um,
And the QR. We will give Reza the deck.
yes, absolutely.
So he can.
Yeah, we'll share it on the meetup.
And there are a few resources around online available to help you prep for it, get ready, figure out what's likely to be in the exam. But have a look at it, because we're already starting to see quite a few jobs pop up online. You need Fabric roles here and around the place. So
And there's slides about it in here. I hit like 3/4 of the deck. There's 111 slides. Don't have time to go through 111, but Reza will get all 111 slides. They can share with you. All right, so straight into the stuff. I think this is what you want me to do.
that's good.
So there's 4 pillars. There's complete analytics platform, link-centric and open, empower every user, and AI. We're gonna save the AI piece until the end. That's all the Copilot stuff. So you gotta stay for 2 hours and wait, okay? So the first thing, how many of you use Power BI? How many people in here use Power BI? Wait. How many people don't use Power BI? Okay, all right. I'm gonna say anyway. And you have all these different personas, you have all these different roles, right? You play all these different roles in your organization, but in your workspace, who has one item in their workspace? Nobody. 2, 3, right? It's just chaos in your workspace. There's so much stuff in your workspace and you want to organize. You want to keep it clean, keep it neat, not like Phil, right? I've been riding with Phil and hanging out with Phil for the last couple of days. It's kind of messy. He's not tidy like me.
Let's see, we actually had a New Zealand customer a couple of years back that discovered that the upper limit for number of items you can have in workspace is about 1,000.
1,000.
And we're here in the room, and they're like, we can't add any more items to this workspace. We're putting all our Power BI reports in one workspace. And it's like, no.
But now, Phil, they can organize them because we introduced folders. Right? So you can create folders in your Power BI workspace, but you can also create subfolders too. So
Subfolder.
this thing, you can do all of this. It's pretty cool.
It's available now. It actually lit up in the last couple of days. So if you haven't spotted it already, it's in the somewhere up here. And the new button, you can create a folder and start moving things around and
That's pretty cool.
organized. Yep.
Total limit of 1,000.
I don't know what the limit
It's
is.
about 10 deep, I understand. I think it's
About
about
10
to actually
deep.
test it.
I don't know how many folders you can create in a workspace. It probably goes along with the items.
Hopefully you're not creating 1,000.
Yeah. Yeah. We improved continuous integration CI/CD. We added more items so you can do pipelines with Git integration, warehouses, Spark Compute jobs, environments. We added some APIs to make things easier. This is something that Phil asked me to cut out because he said nobody would be interested in this. I'm going to go out when they start presenting. If you want to talk about that, we have our own little session. We can talk about that. So
So we're using Azure DevOps. That is, at the moment, you can only put some items in.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's growing now.
we're improving the journey. We're improving the journey and the story. And so how many of you have been in a room and you've scratched something like this out on the whiteboard, trying to figure out, right? And then you walk away and then you come back and it's erased.
Now we take photos.
You take photos. You write, do not erase. Right? Do not erase. And so it's a challenge because, you know, maybe you want to add more things after you take the picture, then you got to rewrite the whole thing. And, you know, but we're introducing this new feature, and this is actually the only live demo that I'm allowed to do. So,
Awesome. I can see where this is going.
yeah, that's not my mouse. Can we get, yeah, so we'll go to a different workspace. And so we have a new feature called, I'll go into daily, because this is a sneak peek. This is off the presses. This is not available anyone to a different environment. I thought I had already opened this up. It's okay. They can wait. They can wait for us. A little late, huh? Can't find a seat.
How's that?
There's one right there.
No, no,
There's one here.
she's organising.
Sorry, I'm so sorry. Nice to meet you. All right.
You want me to take a picture?
Right. So now, when you create your workspace, you have the ability to create what we call a task flow. And the task flow kind of lays out the structure of the project that you're trying to create. So let's say you're trying to build a medallion architecture, right? So it'll lay all these things out for you, and then you can assign existing items to it, or you can add new items. So if I click on one of the little plus signs here, so you get a better look. So you can see how it says new item. There's a little paper clip. So if I click on new item, it's going to suggest the items based on the item that you add, or I can click on the paperclip and it'll add new items. It'll add existing items from the workspace. You can associate those with those. And if you want to make this your own, you just click add, and then you can add other items to the task flow and you can link them up. And it just kind of it gives you a diagram view of what you're trying to create. Now, what we were talking about was, what if I don't want to use that? Well, right now today, split up. I mean, you still have a little space. So we're still trying to determine, are we going to make this available all the time, or can you turn it on and off, right? Okay. Another feature we added.
Hey.
Well done.
Well, that one's not ready yet, is it? That's not.
No, so that's why I'm going to go to this slide. So the pattern will be, we'll talk about the features and then we'll show you what's out now. So folders, new stuff for pipeline, CI/CD, and we're also working on GitHub support for just not just DevOps. So we'll bring GitHub support here too. And we have a new branching experience that I would love to show, but we don't have time. All right. Next, the next pillar, lake centric and open. Hopefully the audio works here because we'll have a video to show. And so generally available is VNet gateways. So it's for data flows Gen 2, semantic models, paginated reports, and Power BI data platforms. So that VNet gateway has been in preview for how long now? 4 years, 5 years, long time. So finally, somebody did their jobs. It's been recorded. I don't care. I really don't care. Say whatever I want to say. And now, if you're using a pipeline, think about if you orchestrated your ETL process, you're extracting data, you're loading data, you're creating your lakehouse tables and everything, you can trigger a semantic model refresh directly from your pipeline. So you can add that to the orchestration process. I thought that was pretty exciting. I like that one. I like that one.
Previously, you could do it with lots of code and.
Oh, it's so messy. Messy. Who wants to write code? Unless it's Dax. Dax is easy. Where's he at? I met him tonight.
Owen.
Owen, yes, where's he at?
There.
There he goes. He says it's easy. Owen says Dax is easy. All right. So lots of things here. You can cancel a refresh. We've doubled the limit of activity for data pipelines, semantic refresh, 8 SPNs for data gateways, just tons and tons and tons of things. What Reza will also get is videos for some of these other demos. You can actually see how they run and how it works.
This data flows incremental refresh is quite a big one too.
Yeah.
So that's going to be quite good. How many people are using data flows at the moment? People, okay, cool. So you don't have to repeat the whole thing every single time it runs.
One or Gen 2?
I knew that question was going to be asked. That's why I skipped this slide. This is Gen 2. Because you have incremental refresh in Gen 1 right now. Okay, so this is Gen 2.
Yes, I can't come in.
How great it works in Gen 1. Okay. So yeah, coming soon. Shortcuts. How many people know what shortcuts are? There's a few people. Shortcuts are really, really powerful.
I had one yesterday.
You had a shortcut yesterday. And so instead of moving data from Amazon, from ADLS Gen 2, you can create a shortcut and it's just like a pointer. So I imagine you create a shortcut on your desktop to something that's on a storage area network. Nobody knows what the saying is these days, right? Just me. I'm mature. Not as mature as Phil, but I'm mature. And so you can create shortcuts to it, but now we added a new possibility for Google Storage. So you can create shortcuts to Google Storage also. So it's nice.
That works for both tables and files.
Yes. Yes.
Can
So
you, can you keystroke those shortcuts?
keystroke. Oh, can you code them?
Can you keystroke them?
Stroke.
Control Alt something.
No. That's a good one. You didn't get it, Phil. You didn't get it. I didn't either. I'm sorry, G. I left the slide in. You actually, next time I'll take it out. We're providing better security control for lake houses at a folder level. And Jeet's going to talk about this more in this session, so I'm not going to steal his thunder. I'm going to go past that. Pretend you didn't see it, Jedi mind trick. You didn't see that slide. Okay, fair enough. All right, so these are all the things we're doing in public preview. But look at the bottom, external data sharing.
What's that mean?
So you'll be able to share stuff in your lake houses and warehouses with people outside of your organization.
I don't want to share that too.
Yeah, I don't know.
B2B?
B2B?
Yeah.
B2B,
Yay.
right? But look at the other one, on-premises data sources. So things that are behind VNets, you'll be able to create shortcuts too. So we're working on it. This coming. Are you talking about that? No, you're not talking.
I'll briefly.
Okay. Okay. One copy for all computes. This is our first video. And so how many of you write Python besides Mim? A few people? Oh no, a good hand of people. What if you want to debug it? You want to go and find out where the mistakes are? Check this out. I'm going to show you this video that Justina.
Or what happens to me is I Copilot something. So give me some Python to do blah, 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 paste it and run it, and then you get an error.
That's right. But
How do I
watch
solve that?
this.
How do I fix it?
Let's see if the audio works.
Users can, of course, use Spark to work against the exact same data in one lake. So let's go ahead and run this notebook, which is also querying the Contoso Outdoors Lakehouse we were just working with using T-SQL. Things start to run immediately thanks to the serverless Spark live pools. But as I run my cell, carrying out some transforms of my lakehouse data, it looks like I'm hitting an error.
That's what you get.
Now, typically, if I wanted to debug an issue, I would have to download VS Code on my machine, download the Fabric extension, get everything set up. But now we have simplified this journey greatly. All I have to do is open up VS Code directly from the browser. Everything opens up seamlessly with no setup. And the great news is I can work with my OneLake data here as well. And the even better news is I can now debug my cells directly inside the VS Code Online, dramatically simplifying my experience. So let's add a breakpoint to our cell where we seem to be hitting an issue. And as I rerun this cell, I can see all my local variables here on the side, making it easy to see what's going on behind the scenes. So let's start digging in to see what's going on. I'm going to open up this transactions variable, which represents the data frame I'm processing. And over here, I can see things like my data types, as well as the column schemas. Taking a closer look, it looks like I actually have a typo in one of the column names I'm trying to change. So let's go ahead and fix the issue in our code and rerun our cell. We'll give it a couple of seconds to run, and it looks like everything is running successfully, meaning we were able to resolve the issue. And the great thing is, because everything is happening in the browser, as soon as I jump back into my Fabric notebook, the changes are reflected there immediately, without me needing to do anything.
Very cool. Cool. And so
Users can, of course,
and so the experience is, think about everybody's talking about when do I want Power BI Desktop on a MacBook? As a MacBook, you'll never get to use Power BI Desktop because we're never creating Power BI Desktop. For the MacBook, we're gonna do everything in the web to make it just work on any device, like an iPad. Sorry, G. But no Power BI Desktop for you. All right.
Power BI Desktop for Windows isn't going away.
It's not going away. It's not going away.
A lot of good new things coming. So
No, we're gonna talk about this. We're gonna talk about this. This slide.
yeah. So what are we talking about here? This is auto tuning Spark. So what this chart is actually showing is a Spark job that's just scheduled to run every day, no changes to the actual code. But what we've introduced is auto tune functionality behind the covers, which is going to optimize it over time. So this chart is showing across several weeks the same job running more efficiently over time, just automatically. So by the end of the chart over here, it's running probably about 40% quicker or more efficiently without you having to change anything. So that just automatically kicks in and it's going to make you better use of your compute on your Fabric compute. So
Yeah.
I like that. Like the no work. Just,
Yeah.
Means you can squeeze out more for less.
exactly.
For less. Oh, we have something that we're working on. I spent 3 hours this afternoon.
Oh.
Can't talk about it yet, but it's gonna be nice. We Spark Auto Tune, new Fabric runtime, Lakehouse schemas, which I think is the biggest thing on this slide, to be honest with you. 3-part naming. I think that'll be great. All right, last one. I think, oh no, one more thing.
T-SQL notebooks.
T-SQL notebooks. Yeah. Okay, that's
I
fair.
thought you'd like that one.
Yeah, that's a good one, because I can do it in the warehouse now, but I just don't use the warehouse that much. I use the Lakehouse. All right, okay. Oh. I took this one out too, because I think Darren's talking about this. I'll learn from my mistakes, Darren and G. And so what if you're working with SQL Server, Azure SQL DB? How do you get that data into Fabric? You write a pipeline, you create a notebook. I won't talk about all the things Darren's going to talk about, but it's not trivial to get your data from your Azure SQL database into Fabric. Well, we are announcing mirroring in Fabric, where you can set up this mirror. Darren's going to show you this, right? Yeah. How you can set this up.
What actually is mirroring? What is a mirror? Anyone in the room know what mirroring is?
It's kind of like this.
Context?
Duplicate replica.
Yeah, a copy. It's a copy of the data.
On inside Fabric though.
Inside Fabric.
Yeah.
And so it takes your data, copies your data in real time, not real time, but real time, in real time, and it keeps it in sync.
Yeah. So if I have a table in an Azure SQL database and I'm adding rows, it automatically in my Fabric.
Yeah. And so guess what I saw at Fabric Conference? It even does schema. Yeah. So if you add a new column, it'll add the new column over there for you.
But this will be expensive, right?
So this is actually free. Yes, it's actually free. That's what Amir says. I didn't say
So not even the storage.
storage for replicas, free mirroring storage for replicas.
Is a question.
It uses Sears, it uses consumption units.
It uses consumption units. It uses consumption units, yeah. It's all uses consumption units. Yeah. Everything uses consumption units.
What were these sources?
Go back. You want me to go back a slide?
Cosmos.
Cosmos.
No one uses that.
No. That's a very true statement. That's not a true statement. Does anybody use Cosmos in this room? Oh, look. You work for Microsoft. You don't count.
You don't count if you work
You
for
don't
Microsoft.
count if you work for Microsoft. Okay. What about Azure SQL databases?
Yep, absolutely.
Everybody uses Azure.
Like,
Snowflake?
and there will be more coming too.
Yeah, there will absolutely be more.
Basically, any source database that has this form of CDC technology where you can leverage replication will look to light this up as mirroring technology in Fabric. It's gonna simplify a lot of things, and being free is pretty cool. So
Pretty cool.
So it wouldn't be any ingestion costs on the data source itself, so something like Snowflake.
outside, I don't think.
Not outside. I don't think outside. Let us verify that for you. That's a good question. That's a good
On the data source side, it will be.
Well, on the data source, the queries you run, yeah, from a query perspective, because you pay every time you interact with Snowflake, right? We had a debate about this. So
Okay, what about Azure SQL database? You did Microsoft, and perhaps you are paying for.
Oh, no.
Price. We'll have to double check.
Yeah, let us double check on that. That's a good question. That's a good question. All right.
Consume DTUs or whatever.
Yeah, whatever you normally pay for your database. So now we're gonna talk about the as part of all this. Yeah, right? That's what everybody came for. Power BI. Nobody cares about anything else because without Power BI, there would be no fabric. It's like you said that this morning. I'm gonna keep saying it all week. Next week, you're gonna hear me say it all the time. And so we made some really nice announcements at the Fabric Conference. Here's the first one. This is Zoe Douglas.
Power
So he's
BI's
actually one of
amazing
the-
reports
or
are
she-
key
my
to
stress.
visualizing the OneLake data using those direct lake semantic models I was talking about earlier. Let's take a sneak peek at the continued efforts we're making in Power BI visuals. The very popular matrix visual now includes some new layouts to align with business users' expectations. Let's take a look. So let's go ahead and choose the tabular layout. Now we see the headers are repeated in each column. I can now also choose not to repeat the headers and simply see them side by side. And I can even add in a blank row as spacing between the sections. And down here I have a stacked area chart highlighting the green product color I selected over in the new button slicer under the bike. All the line charts not only have smooth curves available, but now I included ways to further customize those curved lines. And speaking of stacked charts, I want to show the distribution in a 100% stacked chart. Currently, we only give the 100% stacked charts in bars or columns, but let's take a sneak peek at a brand new visual coming to Power BI. Back over to my stacked area chart, I can now make this into the brand new 100% stacked area chart. This is in addition to all the recent and upcoming updates to expand the visual's capabilities with overlay, transparency, detailed data labels, and even visual calculations to quickly and easily empower your business users to always have exactly what they need to get the job done.
You see how excited she was when she said that?
Power BI's
Okay. And so another thing is enterprise semantic modeling. We'll bring Zoe back. Zoe's coming back on stage.
I'm going to show you a sneak peek of how easy we're making it to create direct lake semantic models on top of any data you have in the OneLake. I simply create.
So did you hear what she said? Create semantic models. Before, you can only edit existing semantic models. Now we're working on bringing the ability to start from scratch.
And also, at the moment, when you create a direct lake model, the only two choices of sources are lakehouse tables
Right.
or warehouse tables. But we're expanding that to be any table anywhere in Fabric. So it means you don't have the dependency on the SQL endpoint anymore, which can be challenging in some situations. But it just gives you a lot more variety, and you'll see at the section of the demo where she can choose tables in Kusto or many of the compute engines that we have in Fabric.
Model and pick from all OneLake data sources I have access to. I am not limited to just lake houses or warehouses. I can pick tables from anywhere they are in the OneLake. K-Quill databases, mirrored SQL databases, even import semantic models with OneLake integration. I just pick the OneLake data source, the tables I want, and now I'm making a semantic model to build beautiful data visualizations and to share insights. I'm making this direct lake semantic model directly in the web. The web modeling experience has had a lot of amazing improvements that work not only on direct lake semantic models, but also other published semantic models as well. I can rename my tables and columns so my business users can find them and use them easily in reports. I can define the relationships between tables so they can just simply use the columns without having to worry about joins. And not only by dragging and dropping in the diagram or in the relationship editing dialog, but now also directly in the properties pane from the Model Explorer. I can even aggregate columns and measures with defined business logic, such as how we compare our measures over time and how we define our key metrics. These measures can even be discovered and reused in the Metrics Hub, which I'll show you a bit later. The Model Explorer here also gives me full visibility to everything I can and what I've already defined in the semantic model that will be used to build many amazing reports to visualize my data, as well as unlock ad hoc analysis across all of Fabric. We have also heard you loud and clear that while the web experience is amazing, you don't want to lose the ability to edit direct lake semantic models, like any other Power BI semantic model, in Power BI Desktop. Here I'm going to show you a sneak peek of live editing a direct lake semantic model in Power BI Desktop. I am in Power BI Desktop and I can simply go to the OneLake Data Hub and pick the direct lake semantic model. The Connect button, which has always allowed me to create a report on any published semantic model, now also gives me the option to live edit. This is amazing. The data is still in the OneLake. I've not moved it. The semantic model is still in the workspace, not locally running on my machine. And I can edit it in Power BI Desktop, just like I can with any Power BI semantic model. Again, I have my Model Explorer here where I can see and define any of the semantic model objects. Now I'm live editing the Direct Lake semantic model in Desktop. I can, for the first time, use DAX Query View to write DAX queries directly on the OneLake data. Not only do DAX queries allow me to view the data in the OneLake, but I can use its functionality to create those amazing measures to aggregate and apply business logic to my data. Try them out without creating visuals, and then simply add them to my semantic model. All with a DAX query editor with many additional features such as formatting queries and changing all occurrences that you may have seen in other code editors such as VS Code. It's amazing to still have access to Power BI Desktop and DAX Query View when live editing Direct Lake semantic models.
All right.
I'm going to show you.
Okay, so the next thing is OneLake integration. And so I don't think people understand, when we say OneLake integration for import semantic models. So if you create you spend a lot of time using Power Query and DAX, and you've transformed and created this beautiful model, but then once you publish it to Power BI, it's automatically synced to the OneLake, which means it creates these Delta Parquet files. And so any other compute can actually use those Delta Parquet files. So it's just like building a lake house or a warehouse, but you do it with Power BI Desktop. So if you wanted to create a shortcut to a table that someone spent time using Power Query to create, you can actually create a shortcut to it and leverage that in your lake house or your warehouse, wherever shortcuts. I don't think shortcuts are in warehouse yet.
And you can turn this on today. You can go into a specific model and I want this turned on. What we're going to do very shortly is automatically have it on for all import models everywhere. So you'll get these lake houses with Delta tables that you can then create other models off or do Python analytics over. And that's going to be exciting.
Yeah, but I want to show you something, Phil, before we walk away. Watch this. Seeing this? You see this right here? You'll actually be able to write SQL queries over your semantic model. Now, why? I don't know. If you're able to do that, and so he's got a reason. Mim's got a reason. I don't know what.
The source of truth.
Yeah, because it's the source of truth, right? But you can. So when at the bottom in the slide it says operate over semantic model data for all Fabric workloads, including SQL queries. So not only can the Lakehouse connect to it and create a shortcut, but I could literally write queries directly against my semantic model. So DAX may not be the easiest language anymore, maybe TC.
It's against the data, it's against the columns.
Yeah.
It's not the measures.
Not the measures, not the measures. Good point. Good point. It's not the measures, it's just the columns. All right. And so here's just the summary of all the things we're doing. There's a new, yes, sir.
Just a quick question around Direct Lake. So in near future, what the performance that people are getting from Direct Lake will be any use cases for import?
Yes. Just later, and we could talk more about it. Phil and I, we have a whole session where we talk about this.
That's tonight, though, aren't we?
No, we're not doing that tonight. We should have done that session tonight. That was amazing. Yes, there are cases. So his question was, with as fast as Direct Lake is, because that Direct Lake is really fast, will there ever, and it's going to keep improving. Phil told me about some improvements that's coming. Do we need import? Yes, there still are use cases for import. Yep. And so there's auto layout, visual calcs, auto layout for mobile reports, Power BI modeling, web improvements. There's just lots of things that's coming for Power BI in the very near future. Stay tuned. Maybe when Adam comes back next year, he'll be able to demo these things live. I hate showing videos, but we don't have access to all the bills. But hopefully, next year when we come back, we'll be able to show more of these things live and in action. All right. I'm gonna hand it over to you. And then
So thank you, Patrick, and thank you for coming here. We're going to see you later after the session. He will be around, and I'll help take a bit more from him. But Darren, so Darren Gosbell, how many people in the room use DAX Studio as part of their day job? Well, Darren is the principal contributor, pretty much the person who wrote DAX Studio. So if that's helped you with your job, you can certainly thank Darren for that. He's at Faith in Melbourne. I use it every day in my job, and it's a fantastic tool. So if you're serious about writing DAX, debugging DAX, absolutely, DAX Studio is the go-to tool to. But that's not what you're here to talk about today. You're going to be just looking at all the various interesting ways that you can bring data into Fabric. So you've been lucky enough to get a Fabric capacity lit up. It's completely blank. You've got no data whatsoever. So what are your options? How can you bring data in? Over to you, Darren.
That's,
Plug in.
yeah, I did. It's just stopped.
To join the team.
Abracadabra.
Turn it off and on again. Mirroring. Reminds me of a joke while he's getting his technical things sorted out. I was in a mirror shop the other day looking at buying a new one, and there was one I really liked that was behind the counter, and I thought I could really see myself buying that. Good question. Okay, yeah, good. We're away. Luckily, because I was going to have about 2 or 3 more lined up then. So
Remind me to switch off the Japanese options. See that afterwards. So that's PowerPoint helping us out. So
does anyone in the room speak Japanese? By the quality of the translation, please ignore it. Cool. How do I get my data into Fabric? Darren?
this is how do I get my data into Fabric. Well, I'm pretty much talking about OneLake. So we sort of had a hands up before, and we sort of know 25% of people are using Fabric. So when you do come to use Fabric, what's going to be in your OneLake? It's going to be an empty OneLake. So you're going to have to find some way getting your source data into Fabric. Patrick's already talked about a few, so I thought I'd do a bit of audience participation here. So you've been sitting around just listening to the marvelous Mr. LeBlanc talk, but you will have heard a number of things, and if you've been using Fabric, you might know, but how many ways do you think there are? Do you want to try and name some or have a guess at how many possible ways there are of getting data in Fabric?
And we have a bag of swag to give away for some of the trickier ones.
Spark notebooks.
Spark notebooks. We've got 2.
Data flow, Spark notebooks.
Link? No.
Mirroring, yep.
Data factory.
Cuts, data factory, yep. So we're up to 5.
Yeah.
OneLake itself, the app.
OneLake Explorer.
OneLake Explorer, yep.
The REST API.
And the REST API. Snowflake, yep. You can do Snowflake mirroring. Got 8 so far.
SharePoint 5.
I don't think we've got SharePoint integration. Add it to ideas.powerbi.com.
Shortcuts.
Data close.
Yeah, we had shortcuts. So you might be surprised to know if you add them all up, I came up with about 19, but 8 major categories of them. We've talked about shortcuts. Shortcuts are a way of bringing files. Either bring them into files, or if your files are in the Delta Parquet format, you can bring them into tables in a lakehouse. They can come from the parts of OneLake. They can come from AWS, GCP, Dataverse. So now it's mirroring. You can do mirroring through Azure SQL, Snowflake, or Cosmos DB. I've grouped the 2 data factories together. You've got pipelines and data flows. They can both pull data into Power BI, into Fabric. When I started, it was a Power BI cat team, and now we're Fabric. So I keep still doing that 4 months later. Data engineering, you can use notebooks, you can use Spark to bring stuff into Fabric. One thing that no one mentioned is we've got a real-time endpoint. You've got event streams. You can stream data in real time, and you can land that in KQL databases or in a lakehouse. But the semantic model integration that Patrick mentioned, that allows you to run an input mode model, and then your tables, the data, the columns, can be exposed in OneLake, and you can then reuse them in other models or query them from SQL. We've got the OneLake API, so you can open up OneLake and treat it like an ADLS Gen 2 endpoint. So you could have other tools, Databricks, for instance, write directly into OneLake. Use AZ Copy or Azure Data Explorer, again, to push through that API layer. Finally, we've got sort of manual methods. You can copy and paste things into the OneLake Data Explorer, and it'll sync them up to your OneLake. There are little options in the UI, in the web UI, to be able to upload a file directly if you've got something local on your machine.
Well, the common thing about all these techniques is they all land data in the same place, the same format, into a lakehouse as Delta tables that can be queried by any of our compute engines. So even though there is a wide variety of approaches to get data in, they still arrive in the same format shape. So
Quick left the room again because I said this last time that what we're going to do here, we're going to head on over to my laptop. In the interest of time, this is something we built this morning when we had a customer session in here. I've got a workspace here. We've got a bunch of different things happening. Thing here called Roadshow Mirror. This is a mirror from an external Azure SQL database. You can see down here, with me that my mirrored Azure SQL database is running. Click on monitor replication. You can see over here that loaded 547 rows. So that initially started with one row, and then I'm in a pipeline to push stuff into the SQL database, and all of those things flowed through.
if I went and did a select star from dbo.station in my Azure SQL DB, I'd expect to see 547 rows. But I've got a mirrored lake.
If they're inserts, these could also be update transactions.
Sure.
But you may see less than that. So it might be updating existing data because this can do a merge type update. So
if I look at the number of rows that are in our mirrored version, it should match this number of rows that are in the source.
yeah, you did a select from DBO station in Azure SQL and a select from in my lakehouse, you should get the same number. So there may be a few seconds delay because we're doing transactional sort of replication between the two.
Very easy to set up, just a couple of clicks.
What about deletions? Delete the record from the source. Will the deletion happen in Lake as well?
Yeah. So if you delete, we see that delete transaction and we mirror that across as part of the mirror. Configure replication is really easy. It's here's my connection string to my source, and then I can choose which data I want.
And remember, this is free.
On all, or you can pick specific tables. At the moment, there's a limit of like 500 tables. There's a few conditions, like your tables have to have a primary key.
Yeah, when you initially create the mirror as well, it might take a little bit of time depending on how much data is in your source table. So if you've got a couple of million rows, for example, it might take a few minutes while it sort of gets up to the initial match. But then from then on, inserts up and updates and deletes that take place on the source should be reflected in the mirrored version of the table inside Fabric.
To start this PowerShell script, just reading the reads the percentage CPU usage and the amount of free memory on my laptop, and it's just pushing it into a specific endpoint. Back to my workspace. The thing I've got here is this little thing called a heartbeat. So that script is sending a heartbeat of the CPU and
So it's this event string here, for example, that you created.
yeah, so I created an event stream. Part of the event stream, find a source. This source is a custom application. But it could be, and more likely in the real world, it's going to be something like an Azure Event Hubs or an Azure IoT Hub, and just be a script of some sort. So this is a script I've built just as an example to generate some data flowing through. That's my source. It's coming from my scripts pushing to an endpoint.
Your PowerShell script is just looping and firing off add a row, and it's coming into here.
What we selected, the heartbeat you can see is selected, and it's showing me a sample of the data down here, showing me the end of processor and the available megabytes. And these things are flowing in every 2 seconds.
They're ending up.
And on the other side, you define your destinations for this real-time events. But this can be different things. Now I'm pushing it into my lakehouse. I've got a Roadshow lakehouse, but I could push it into a KQL database. Or I could push it into a Reflex, which is a data activator. So I can define rules in data activator. So send me a Teams message if my CPU goes over 80%. I was looking at one time at being able to run something like this on a gateway. So I mentioned a Power BI gateway, and you want to know my available memory drops below a certain amount, my CPU spikes above a certain amount, send me an alert. You could do that like this. Could be any real-time source. I can wanted to do analysis, I can land it in the Lakehouse or a KQL database. If I have a look at that in my workspace, I set up a roadshow house table here called heartbeat. Click on that, it'll show us the data from that new record data every couple of seconds. Event string. But in addition to this, so I've now shown you some real-time data coming in. Notice this top has a tiny little link in it. Anyone recognize the name of that? Tiny little link up the top. This DBO station is coming from my mirror. So I now have mirrored SQL database, which I've now shortcut warehouse into this lakehouse. Heartbeat. One below here, this public prices, this is coming from a Australian energy market data that I've test externally into a Delta Parquet table in ADLS, and I've shortcut that in. So this is coming from one's ADLS, this one's real time, this one's mirrored SQL. And I'm going to shortcut and bring them all together into a single lakehouse. Why would I want to do that? Bring it all together. Now I can build a Power BI model over the top and analyze data from all these different sources.
So when your CPU goes up to 100%, we'll see that reflected in the electricity market. All of a sudden, there's a big surge in power.
My laptop's here driving the power prices. Check below. The other thing I built earlier was, so I've got CSV files loaded from another ADLS Gen 2 container. These are coming in as CSV, and I can click on those and do a preview of them. But then I can write a data flow or a pipeline to take these, or a notebook, do some analysis or do some aggregation, push them up into tables. And now ability to bring that data that I've shortcut in and then do extra processing and extra transforms on it. Very simply. The thing I've got in my workspace is I've got a little AdventureWorks semantic model. So this is just an import mode model. Normally, like the import mode models up until recently have been sort of like the word legacy, but they've sort of been a standalone artifact in terms of Fabric if you had an import mode model. But as Fabric, as Patrick mentioned, now take these and put them in one lake.
Why do that?
You go into my lake house, add a new shortcut using a one lake source, but it's in addition to like mirrored databases and other lake houses, I can see a semantic model. Click on that semantic model, I can now see the tables inside it. Now I can take data that I've run through it. It's just a normal import mode model that you're all used to. Run my Power Query transforms, it's done cleansing, it's done filtering. I bring it in, I can now shortcut that into my lakehouse. You could use this as an easy stepping stone for, I run this lakehouse model, bring this table in, and now I can shortcut my dimensions and reuse those in other lakehouses to create direct lake models. Now you can see I've got 4 tables coming from all different sources. There's shortcut in from my mirror, real time, shortcut in from ADLS, shortcut in from an import mode model. So I can bring all this stuff together, reuse it. I'm not making copies of data. I can reuse it, create other models. I can create another lakehouse in another workspace. If I've got permission, I can shortcut them in there too. It's my whirlwind tour.
Oh, it's finished. Sorry. I mean, from your earlier slide, there's many more ways that you can bring data in, and it's all generally fairly easy. It's designed to just, collect what makes sense together in a nice lake house and create Google reports, etc. And easy.
I think,
Yeah, so thank you, Darren. So now what we're going to do, we're going to bring Darren back in when we do Q&A, etc. So created your fabric capacity, you've brought some data in using the wonderful magic ways that Darren just talked about. The next thing you really want to do is start to secure your data in Fabric. So Amanjeet, who's based in Sydney, is our expert on security with Fabric. So he's going to now spend some time just giving you an update of what you can do today, what's coming up in the near future, a bit on strategy. So this is probably the most important part. So I definitely don't want you to take any shortcuts or speed things up. You might want to save your questions to the Q&A though, because some of the stuff might trigger some questions, but otherwise, all good. Thank you, Amanjeet Singh.
Thanks. Can everyone hear me? The back. I don't need a microphone.
you're telling him.
It's more for actually online.
Okay.
For those of you that came to the same roadshow last year, it was supposed to be Darren, myself, and Amanjeet, but he couldn't make it because he hurt his leg, broke his leg falling out of an aeroplane. That's not the best way to do it. So it's really actually nice to have him in person. I did tell him about 6 weeks ago, no skydiving. I need you here in person. So I'm really pleased you managed to get here not on crutches.
Yeah, just some fun stuff, I guess. Yeah, so my name is Amanjeet. I'm also based out of Sydney. I work with Patrick, Phil, everybody else here, Mim. We're all part of the customer advisory team. I look primarily after OneLake, shortcuts, data security, platform security, and anything that's on Azure basically, because that's my background before I moved to Fabric Cat team. Just by a quick show of hand, who's present here, who deals with the networking aspect of Azure or Fabric? I just want to suss it out. Okay, we've got 1, 2, we've got a few people. Okay. I'm just gonna, I'm gonna keep it entertaining. I'm not gonna bore you with the details. Yeah, so the way I've structured my presentation, I'm going to talk about what's available today on Fabric from platform security and data security perspective. And then we're going to switch gears and talk about the announcements that we made at Fabric Conference and in the weeks leading up to Fabric Conference in March. We did a lot of announcements, and most of those security announcements were related to networking, and hence I checked who's into networking design and security. On Fabric, we break down the security into data security and platform security. So data security is anything that has to do with your data itself. So we're talking about RLS, data masking, CLS, or column level encryption, and those things. That's all your data security. And then on the platform security side, that's where your networking, your identity, your audit logs, and all those things that come into the picture. Because these are the two main categories of security that we deal with. I think most of the folks here today, you probably deal with data security aspect. So we do have some announcements and a demo as well in there. From the security principles side of things, I would just like to call out these 5 points. Always on, and it has nothing to do with SQL Server always on. We could have done a better job in terms of marketing. It's just always on, and it sounds great. What it means is that any interaction that we do on Fabric, that's all backed by your Intra ID, or previously known as Azure Active Directory. And all the data that you store on Fabric OneLake, it's all encrypted at rest. The interactions that are taking place between the backend components, they're all taking place on our network infrastructure, so it's not exposed to the public internet. Give you features for compliance in the sense that, so OneLake allows you to spin up capacities in different regions, and that basically dictates where your data resides. So once you attach your capacity with the workspace, that's how you know your data is going to reside. So you get options, and Fabric is GA service, so it's available in almost all the regions, barring a few, which we have listed on our website. In terms of certifications, we have got a few new certifications that I'll cover a bit later. Out of the box, we do have a lot of data governance features on Fabric, such as your data lineage, your data impact analysis, which show you how the data is being consumed within a workspace from start to the end. Of course, you got option to then integrate it with Purview as well. And that's our plan as well. Whatever governance features we release in Fabric, you'll be able to use it through Purview. But also, let's say if some of you are not using Purview, you got our option to just rely on Fabric's native features for data governance. That's flexible configuration. That's perfect. What do you call? I wouldn't say a feature, but more of a characteristic of Fabric that it allows you to basically turn on and off certain security features, depending on the security requirements, especially the networking ones that we're going to cover today. They are not mandatory, depending on if you require private access to your Fabric deployment. You can enable or disable that feature. And Fabric security is evolving. So what it means is that, well, the security landscape is generally evolving anyway. So we have to keep evolving our security landscape so that we can, deal with the different threat vectors that are there. But also, we are getting a lot of feedback from the customers on how they use our products. So take our feedback seriously. Depending on the feedback, certain features, we will continuously improving and evolving the security features. Again, this is how Fabric connectivity architecture works today. So if you log into Fabric on your web browser, the first thing at on the login page, you get a prompt and you enter your user ID and password, which means that even though you could get to a Fabric web page on the internet, you can't just log in. You need a password and proper access control to get in. And then this slide reflects are the backend components that we have got. So we use a layered architecture from the system design perspective. All the backend components, they interact with each other on the internal network backbone. They are not publicly accessible. And the components that are talking to each other at the backend, they have got, we follow what you call as principle of least privilege. So depending on what actions they are doing, the backend components, they'll have different level of access. So that's how all the data is, the interactions are protected. The traffic obviously traverses our network backbone, and we use TLS. As I called out earlier, there were a lot of announcements related to networking security, and that was primarily because a lot of our customers in the regulated industry, such as healthcare and FSIs, they were the ones basically asking for these features because they couldn't use Fabric over public endpoints. They want to block public endpoint completely. That's their black and white requirement, and they want to be able to access Fabric over their private networks. Hence, we had to prioritize those features, and that's something that we're going to talk about. Call out, if you can see on my slide, I've got inbound connectivity and outbound connectivity. So these are the two connectivity patterns on Fabric. So inbound connectivity means if you are outside of Fabric, how you access Fabric, how do you get into it? That's something we call inbound connectivity pattern, and that comes with its own security features. Then we got the outbound connectivity pattern, which is I'm on Fabric now and I want to access my, let's say, Azure SQL database or ADLS Gen 2 or Snowflake, which is running on Azure on a private network. That's where your outbound connectivity comes into the picture. And we released a few features in those two to address those two networks. Today, even here, like all of us here from Microsoft, we actually rely on, we don't actually use private links to access our Fabric deployment. We actually rely more on identity, and there's a feature in Entra, or previously known as Azure Active Directory, called conditional access, which basically checks when you access Fabric, whether you're accessing Fabric from an approved set of IP addresses, whether you are accessing Fabric from an approved device. So I've got endpoint protection installed. This is my personal laptop, by the way, but I can still access Microsoft Tenant because it meets the security requirements and my device is compliant. And it also checks whether you're using multi-factor authentication. So that's something that we use today, and we generally encourage customers to go down this path. But obviously, if this doesn't work for you, let's say like we just released the private link feature, which allows you to connect to Fabric over network. So we'll discuss that in a few slides down the line. Also available today on Fabric is your data security aspect. So you can today set up security at workspace level through workspace roles, and then you can go a bit granular. You can go to individual items that are there on Fabric, such as your warehouse, lakehouse, and you can grant item level privileges to certain people or groups within your organization. And if you want to go even lower, engines such as SQL endpoints, semantic models, they allow you to set up RLS, CLS, object level security, and that's all GA today. This is just a nice little list of what's GA. I'm not going to spend too much time on this one because we will share this deck. Here are the new announcements. So we just got the HIPAA certification and a whole bunch of ISO certifications. If you go to the Azure Trust Center, where we generally keep all our certification details, Fabric is now listed there, and that's something that we recommend. That would recommend enterprises to go in and for the risk and compliance reviews, they can actually go in and check out the certifications we've got.
These are the ones we've got today, and there's more coming, right? There's plenty more coming.
Yeah, so there are definitely more coming later this year. I would say next 6 to 12 months, we shall see more land because it's not that we don't want those certifications, it's just that we have to wait for the certification cycle to come through. So yeah, we should definitely see that list grow in the coming months. Another update, we updated the security documentation. It's quite detailed now, and it talks about platform and data security. And we have restructured the entire documentation. You can see it talks about network security, platform security, and then data security. It's quite detailed. Everything that I'm discussing here, we've already actually updated in the documentation.
It's improved a lot in the
it's
last little while.
Now, when you actually access our documentation, you'll actually find answers, unless a few months ago, where you would end up with more questions than answers, including myself. So we're really proud of this. We fixed up the documentation. It was a big effort, more than actually delivering features.
Did you help create that?
Yeah, so one of the responsibilities of our team is to actually work with different product groups and drive the improvement in documentation.
Awesome.
Each one of us owns a different area. So I own OneLake, Showcards, data security, platform security. Bill's the guru in Direct Lake.
Awesome. Well done.
And then we got the guru in DAX Studio. We got Darren.
Paginated reports.
Paginated reports. So yeah, each one of us have got different responsibilities, and then yeah, so that's something that we did, I think, last month. This is another new announcement. So OneLake data access rules, what they allow, which I think Patrick did show briefly on his slide, and he didn't want to steal my thunder. And I apologize for the animation because I don't know how they got in, because I wasn't expecting animation there. So what OneLake data access role lets you do is, if you go into, well, up until last month, if you went into Fabric Lakehouse, you'd have to either give everyone access to the entire lakehouse or no access at all. What data access roles lets you do is it allows you to give individuals and different groups access to set of tables. Other than giving on and off access to the lakehouse, you cannot choose which tables you want to give access to. In addition to that, if you're familiar with Fabric Lakehouse, which has got tables and file section, in the file section, you can also grant folder level access to the individuals and groups. So rather than giving full access to everything or nothing, now you got option to do that.
That be a ground? Oh, I'll ask.
No. Go for it.
Would that be the grassroots thing for people who have access to Power BI on certain reports? That will affect it?
So that's a good question. So the access control that you set up today,
because that's obviously to tweak it, but I'm talking about for a person to view it.
You can definitely control the access. So this is whatever access control you set up here, it's scoped to the Lakehouse table and Lakehouse Right? And then when you do build Power BI reports on top, you can have another layer of security set up there. Or you can just give that user access to 2 tables here and you don't have to do anything in Power BI model because they only got access to 2 tables there. So that's definitely possible. But if you want tighter controls, you can have another layer of security set up in Power BI. So this is the next demo. It's actually recorded by, I believe, Aaron, who's the PM for this data access role feature. There's no audio, so I'll do the narration and he'll do the everything on the video that you see. So what you're going to see here is Fabric Lakehouse, and Aaron's going to go in and in this first video, which is a few seconds, he's going to go in and create a bunch of roles. The key thing about these roles is they all read access roles. So in the current release, these are read roles. These are not write roles. So when you create a role, the read role will come. Right, it's definitely planned for future. Yes. The video moving? I can't tell. Yeah, it is moving. Can't tell from here. So the way you interact with it is through the Lakehouse experience, and over here you can see Aaron going in, creating a role name. You can name it whatever you want, and then linking a set of tables and object, I think folders as well, to this role. And as I said, this is a very short video. It's 2-part video. I don't know why we didn't do a single video, but I'm not the guy for the video. So what Aaron just did is he created a role, attached a bunch of objects to that role. And in the next video, you'll see him that now he's going to actually assign that role to a set of individuals. Yep. He's still sticking to the Lakehouse, and I think he's creating a new role again. By the looks of it, yeah, he's creating a new role and he's created a few, and he's added a few tables to it. And now what he's doing is he's going to go in and add people to that role. These individuals, once this role is granted to them, they'll get read access to the objects that are attached to that role. Pretty straightforward video. Complicated. And whatever you're seeing on the screen, that can be done programmatically as well through REST APIs. I am pretty sure the REST APIs are already out there.
And just to clarify, can we do that today, or is this something
Yeah,
that's shortly?
it's available today. It's in public preview today. It was initially in private preview for a couple of months where we took feedback from the customers on how we can optimize it. And yeah, this is the public preview.
And I see he's adding individuals, but you can add groups.
100%, you can add groups as well.
Yeah, practice way to do it. So that other people, if they move into organizations, they can get put in the appropriate groups and bang, be able to get access to the data that they're allowed to see, but nothing else. So
Question.
That's a quick question. Whose role is it to create roles, assign roles to people? Is it the developer, administrator?
Ideally, it should be the whoever owns what. Actually, in today's the way it works today. So whenever you create an object in Fabric today, it's owned by an individual. It's going to change, and we'll have a system managed identity in the longer run. But today, it's actually owned by an individual. So today, a workspace administrator can do this. Can go in, and even the owner of the item itself. So let's say you create a lakehouse, you can then go create permissions for these roles and assign it. Well, I haven't tested it with contributor role on the workspace side, but those 2 roles can definitely do this job of creating roles, assigning it to tables, and giving it to running it to you.
Members and admins, right?
Yeah.
If I bring in my database, it's got a set of rules and regulations, who can see, do what. Automatically brought in and will be showing.
You say you bring in your Dataverse, are you referring to Dataverse link? Also?
Yeah, like CRM data, for example.
Okay, so today you got So if you're talking about Dataverse, you can bring in Dataverse through Synapse Link. That's one mechanism to bring the data. You write it to ADLS Gen 2, and from there you can shortcut into cows. Or the other mechanism is to use the
Dataverse option.
Dataverse Fabric Link. I think that's what it's called now. No, but they are purely focused on bringing your data, and they do not bring the missions itself. Okay. That's something you'll have to configure yourself once you land the data into Fabric. Yeah. So your permissions don't flow through from Dataverse. No. There's one more question at the back.
When you assign a role to, let's say, a specific table or folder, if someone goes through the one like Explorer or Storage Explorer, they have access to the folder, or they need a separate permission to access the folder through those softwares.
So the question is, once you assign a role to a user, and the same user now accesses that folder through OneLake Explorer app, are those roles or those permissions honored? Yes, so they still apply. Even if you're going through the OneLake Explorer app, they'll still get honored. You can't, like, if you don't have permission, you're not going to have permission through OneLake Explorer app. That part is covered. One more question.
Civil security?
It will come eventually later this year for Lakehouse and for other engines, so that you can configure it in one place and all the workloads will honor that row level security. It's just a complex problem to solve, and which we're still working through, but we should have it at least in preview hopefully later this year. But today, Phil's going to cover it.
Oh, no, but the engines actually have row level security in them. It just means you have to go and define them in each individual engine. So if row level security is important to you today, set it up in Power BI, for example, and you could definitely secure everything upstream so that no one can get access to the source data in a roundabout way. But that's the sort of solution today. But the ultimate, the nirvana down the track, is going to be able to define row level security rules here in the center on the actual lakehouse, and that'll just automatically be inherited by all the various compute engines. That's what we're working very hard on. So
yeah, so you have to execute a few more steps, but you can definitely implement RLS and CLS masking on warehouse and SQL endpoint, and then Power BI has its own security model that you can leverage. You can definitely secure your workloads. It just means you got to go through a few more screens to configure it in multiple places.
Definitely old school.
I don't have any issues, but I can just code it, I guess. So again, this is the fun bit, the networking stuff. So we released the private link feature for Fabric. What it does is that once you enable it, you can't access Fabric through the public endpoint. It's completely blocked off. The only way to get into Fabric then is through your approved virtual network, which again, won't configure yourself. This is something that'll be done by your network architects and platform administrators. This is a one-time activity. Once you enable it, then what it does is that it basically closes down public access pathways to your Fabric tenant. You can only get through a private address. So it's just locking down how you can access the Fabric deployment. From network perspective, you still need a username and password to get in, but it's just a network route. So that's a tenant level setting. It's either or. So every workspace will get it automatically once you enable it. And it's in preview. I think the key point here is that this pattern can then be also extended to connect to Fabric from your on-premises through Azure Express Route, if you're familiar with that. The other point is that it's only available in the F-SKU, F64 and above at the moment. Not the end state, we might change it, but we're working through it at the moment.
I recently read your updated documentation. It's pretty good. And I was a bit appalled that if you turn this on, you can't use on-prem data gateway.
No. At the moment, no. So that's a temporary limitation.
Okay.
Yeah, so we haven't got a solution for it right now, but we are working through it. Yes, that's a good call out. Yes, it's actually called out in our documentation as well, I think.
No, it's exactly in there, right? And it's a bit alarming.
So that's why, like, The documentation has got every single limitation and consideration called out for each one of the features that I'm discussing here. Again, this is not a decision for your developers, it's more for your security teams to take. Yeah.
Call out because it is a big hammer, so it does break a few things.
Yeah.
I know, but I'll use your argument that you in Microsoft don't use private links. So I work for a bank, but good luck convincing the cyber guys that we can go over public for 1433 port.
Yeah, it is it's a tedious exercise. Been part of a few discussions with a few banks. In cases, I've been able to convince one bank, so it's but I haven't been able to convince 4 other banks. If that helps, I don't know. So the success rate is not great. But I always use Microsoft as an example, like we are using public endpoint. Next feature is the managed virtual network and managed private endpoint. Now, I'm sure a lot of customers have got services and applications running on Azure that are running on private network, which you can't access on the public internet. So what these features do is they allow you to connect to those services that are running on private network through managed private endpoint. It's called managed because basically you click a button and then Fabric goes in and creates the virtual networks and endpoints that are needed for you to connect to different sources. Again, not something that you'll do on daily basis. This is a one-off exercise that you'll do. I think this is per workspace. Not something for developers to deal with. This is something that your workspace admins and network administrators on Azure, they have to work out. And yeah, so this option is there as well. Why did we prioritize it? Well, because a lot of regulated customers need it, and they generally do not run their workloads with public endpoint accessible over the internet. So this is again a new feature, and it is also available on F64 SKU and above. It's not available on P SKU. Yeah, it's in public preview. And there's some animation, and it brings up all the points that I just talked through. Before I do the next time, and I'm going to remove this animation. So it basically talks about all the points that I just called out. Moving on, we also announced the GA for the virtual network data gateway, which lets you connect to, again, your data sources that are deployed on Azure behind a private network, or on a private network, and it allows you to connect your semantic models, data flow gen 2, Power Platform flows. Again, it's got managed because Microsoft manages it, and you can deploy it through a click of a button. It is GA. It's not a public preview feature. It had been in preview for a while, but it's GA now. So yeah, for Microsoft. Last one on my item is the workspace identity and trusted workspace access. So workspace identity in its initial release, it's an identity that's created per workspace by a workspace administrator. What it allows you to do in the current release is that it allows you to connect to Azure's data lake storage accounts that are deployed behind a firewall. Basically, once you enable the Fabric workspace identity, your administrator can go into Azure portal, and then from there they can select Fabric workspace as a trusted service, and that allows Fabric to just connect to your ADLS Gen 2 behind the firewall or on private network without changing the network settings on the storage side. So this is, again, we announced last month. We're most likely going to extend the capabilities of Fabric workspace identity in the sense that you'll be able to schedule pipelines, and hopefully in the longer run you'll be able to own objects eventually using Fabric workspace identity instead of an individual owning an object. So is it from the security update perspective?
Amanjeet, that's it's important stuff, and we're certainly lucky to hear from one of the people that know it the best. So it's really good to have you here. So what I'm going to do now is invite Mim to the podium. We heard from Darren about how we can get data into Fabric. We've heard from Amanjeet, how do we secure it? Now what we're going to look at is an end-to-end solution, not a particularly big solution, but effective solution. You know, now that we're actually, what can we actually do with Fabric in a real world end-to-end sense? So something that, and Mim's debuting for the first time. He's only just started with Microsoft a few months ago. If you follow him on Twitter, he's a character. That's the polite way to put it. And I'm really enjoying actually spending some time in person with him. So what I'll do is I'll leave it over to you now to just introduce your solution and show us what we can do with Fabric.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here. Pleasure to see Daniel. Helped me a lot with DNAV Visual and Owen. I had an issue with DAX in 2017, and Owen is crazy. It's another level. So the presentation actually, it's not really a demo. It's like real life case that I built 2019 using different technology. Now with Fabric, really trivial because you don't need to think about how to do like configuration between our house and the Python and the storage. Remember, I spent months trying just to understand here, just one click. It's very important for me. Like that's really the selling point. Here, obviously, you need to write code, but all this configuration just one click. So the everything is available, so you can download it. Data is public. It's a Seamark operator, and they have this link, and they provide like a lot of data. So you can use as an example. So here, I used the task flow. So I asked, so they told me it's okay to use it.
Oh, yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. So the green items over here at the left represent you going and collecting data using what artifacts were you using primarily to actually?
Yeah, so it's CSV, JSON, for some reason, and obviously Excel. So there is three types of data. There's data that Excel doesn't change much. Basically, once we have like a new station, like a solar farm or something, yeah, obviously you don't have this every day. Lucky maybe once or 4 months or times, like once a year. 5-minute data, which give you like how much power is generated every 5 minutes. And because the data arrive every 5 minutes, and that not entire block of time, each data. And what happens is every 24 hours, they do correction and they add more fields. So you have to backfill data. So it's like there is, they call it like hot and cold or something like that. The Python, all it does, it's read from the website and check if the file was already downloaded, download only the new files, because it's CSV but compressed.
So over here on the green, you've got a series of notebooks that just are configured to run on a schedule daily or hourly or 5 minutes, and they just type in code to reach out and go and grab this external data and bring it in and deliver it to a lakehouse.
Yes, absolutely. And the beauty really, because I still remember like it was literally 2019. Once you have like the notebook, like you just attach to storage. That's it. It works. There is no authentication. So everything, because it's inside the workspace. I can't stress enough like how useful it is. Obviously, you need to know how to write code. That's obviously there is not.
A lot less code required because it's in some Fabric requirements. Some of the things
But the beauty is the code, it's only business logic. So the ones, let me just show you the lake. This I added just like literally they announced not months, they released folders, and before it was ugly, but now it's like ID, just like very nice. I love it. So this is all the notebook, and this is the scheduler. It's like something I learned in Fabric. You can just simply come, for example, here, and you say schedule. Or run.
You're scheduling your pipeline to run.
Yes.
Your orchestration. You got any tips about why you're using a pipeline and not necessarily scheduling the notebook to run?
Yes, for you use the pipeline, because in the pipeline you can control concurrency, because when you're importing file, you want only one notebook to be running. Not, for example, if you say on this notebook every 5 minutes, and for some reason there was a network issue with, and there is always some issue. Happen is it will not take 5 minutes, it will take 10 minutes. Then the second one will run, and you end up with concurrency and wasted time. But with the scheduler, you have that option.
Pipeline also helps manage timeouts as well. If something gets
Yes.
stuck, it can actually jump in. So your pattern that you're suggesting here is perhaps use pipeline to configure the orchestration and use that to all the notebooks to collect the data and bring it in.
Yeah, absolutely. But especially for like any serious job, like if you want just to run it like once a day, or you know what, like even once a day, because very rare, but it happened. Like in 1 year, like nearly 1 year, I never had an issue, but one time, like was doing some stupid code and it ended up using 18 hours. It's my fault. Still, if I had like here, if I put the timeout, it will just reach the maximum. Like here, I'm telling the maximum is half an hour. Probably take, I don't know, like 3 minutes, but just to be sure. And you can control concurrency here. Yes. So here, like it's always one. So let's go back and the storage. Usually because here I'm for me personally, my main interest is to make it as cheap as possible. And still there is stuff coming where it will be even cheaper, but I can talk about it. Coming. Because for me, like what really matters is the cost.
And let's just run. So let's just keep this. How long has this been running for in Fabric?
Since May.
It's just a personal project, and there's some fascinating insights and data, and it's just so easy to set up.
Yes.
But in the previous approach, other technology, a lot more work.
Yeah, because you need to. I will not name it because it's inappropriate. Because okay, you need to know how to create load functions. You need to know how to configure, how to call load function from scheduler. And then you need to know how to configure cloud function to talk to storage. You need to know how to tell database to read from the storage. And for a specialist, maybe it's easy. But if you're, I'm a business user, I'm not interested in technology. All I want is just like the output, and Fabric make like substantially easier. Yeah, and you still need to write code, but just business code. You're not interested in all. Yeah.
My question is that you mentioned cost management is your big concern here.
Yeah.
But we are paying for capacity.
Yeah.
So what are you running this on?
Yeah. No. This one obviously for the way I run this like in multiple. This is like the work tenant. I used in my personal tenant, and it worked with F2. So when I say I know where you're going, basically I want to reduce the usage so it can run in F2. That's what I mean by reducing cost. Because if you don't this way, it means maybe you need F4, which costs double. So the idea is you try to minimize the usage compute unit. So we use like as cheap as possible.
In F2, you can run only one notebook at a time, right? Is it correct?
Yeah, but here all I need is just like once at a time. All I need, because like every
For the duration that it is running. Not-
yeah. Because like I need to run it every 24 hours at 6 a.m. and I need to run it at every 5 minutes. So at any time I just need like only one running job.
Also on that F2, which is quite cheap, you can pause it, but you still get Power BI. You can build the Power BI report.
Yes.
The
And that's actually the interesting part is the so you have F2 because like what does it mean really F2? F2 basically it means like you have 2 compute unit in 24 hours. So you have 48 hours compute unit. And the idea is you can spend it all in just one run, at least that. Or if you optimize, you get more unused capacity, which you can use for Power BI. There is like a lot of opportunity for optimization. Again, there's stuff coming. Just I'm very excited about like even that. I'm not. Yes, like even F2 for me. All right. Okay.
and of course, you can look at this on your phone, your mobile device. You can be on the bus to work and have a look at the Power BI report on your phone and see the latest data as it's coming in and running on a F2.
And I think it's because it's using Direct Lake. So once the data, okay, you know. Just show you the lake. Like basically it's just it's a storage, so don't like overthink it. It's like a storage, but there is like 2 areas. So one area is the files area, which is for like SQL people. You call the landing zone. You can just put files, whatever you want. And the files can be like CSV or anything. But here in this area, which is the managed table, it's a bit special. If you write to Delta table, it will automatically like recognize it. Here it's well, like a database, so I have like tables and column and so on. Here I'm using a shortcut. For me, that maybe that's one of the best things that happened, but maybe it's I'm just connecting to S3 compatible provider. This one is personal, but nothing to do with Microsoft. And the reason I use because I don't pay space, so like I love it. It's even more safe and it's cheap. Yes, so it's okay. Put this way, yes. And so I'm putting here all the archive for like 5 years, which is 106 gigabyte, 2,800 file. And the idea is when you do something personal, like your worldview is different. Your employer pay for it, like probably I would do it differently. That's like people have different motivation.
We might have a different opinion on that.
Yes, all right. Yeah, okay.
Money talks.
Yes, money talks. It's very important. So yeah, it's the and I'm doing this one is it's just for fun. I don't think it has any. Even like I can share the data like this is not like official sharing, but the idea is I can create Delta and just share it externally with everyone. And all right, so we have the storage here because it's Delta, and all the engine in Fabric will just recognize the data, the table, and you don't really need to do refresh. So we have the semantic model here, and we have our report. The data is like 200. Overall, it's 230, I think. 30. I can't remember. Don't ask me here. My tax. 230 million. Sorry.
230 million rows of data.
Yes. Yeah.
On your F2.
Yeah.
In Excel.
No, it's good. It's good. No, it's good. But having said that, it's like you need to do like best practice. So for example, don't put like I mentioned with 500,000. Oh, actually, I was talking to the dev who built it, like build Android. I told him like I put in 500,000 and it's slow. I told him like you're idiots. So obviously, if you put like group by 500,000, there is no way to. So yeah, that's the and the thing is, all the data is from Australia. You can see it's 415, so it's like using the latest data, and you can ISON background. ISON.
Cool, awesome.
You notice here, unfortunately, like the Australia black coal and is still like 90%. All this talk about green energy is just.
Well, in the interest of time, we'll wrap up there. Yeah, it's a nice example of an end-to-end solution. There's, you know, it's a great pattern. There's many options. It just shows what you can do on a low-cost approach. So what I'm going to do now, so thank you, Mo, is let's bring the other guys on. We'll do about 20 minutes of Q&A. So any of the questions that you've got pending from earlier in the session, or any random ones, come up. Patrick, come on, front and centre. Don't be shy. Anything that goes, anyone mentions security, it's going to go to Jeet. And then if we have time, we'll finish with a couple of Copilot videos.
We got some swag.
Oh, we do have swag.
People asking questions.
Do you want me to put it out?
Yes, if you like. Right, no one's got questions. All right, we can go home.
Yeah, I have a specific question facing these days. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Customer is storing Microsoft Access file on SharePoint. Microsoft Access, right?
Yeah.
On SharePoint, and they want to bring it into Fabric without gateway. One of their developers said that I was using SharePoint folder connection and using data flow, and I was able to get into the data. But from a couple of days back, they are receiving a yellow line on top, ribbon, saying that ACE 12 provider, something is missing, and you need gateway.
Need a gateway, all support. Next question.
Very specific question.
Yeah, it's very specific.
Okay, so the same scenario with Excel works flawlessly.
Yeah.
All right. So is there a way that we get through it without the gateway, or what gateway, what game or role the gateway is playing here? Because the data is stored on SharePoint, authentication goes through entry ID, and they should be accessed to the data.
But it worked at a point in time.
Yeah.
So not the game.
Yeah, I mean, typically, if you've got something that's working today or has been working, then suddenly stops working, it probably is the best thing to raise a support ticket in case something has been, a regression has been introduced to a release. We release to Power Fabric every 7 days, and while we take all care to try and make sure there aren't any issues, that sounds like a very edge case, because I don't know of anyone that uses Access. So it's quite possible that there's a regression. So it's
maybe my more specific question was about what role the gateway is playing here. We have a file that is stored on SharePoint Online. The connection is through the cloud. So where should they install the gateway? On a machine, and why?
Our query has like hundreds of connectors, and I believe Access is one of them. Well, I haven't used it.
Yes, that is.
But there are thousands of data sources. So type of error would typically come about if there's a data source that doesn't have a native connector, and therefore it's asking gateway so that you've got a place to install that specific provider. So it does sound like a bug. I would say, yep, get a CSS case open. Because for some reason it's not able to find the Access driver. So it's saying you need a gateway so you can install that, assuming that it's a third-party thing. So it's a generic error of some sort. That's typically why I would say, database that is built in his basement down in Christchurch, and he's got a specific driver, but you need to install it somewhere. So if we don't have a driver, it's the role the gateway would play. If it's unsafe code or if it's third-party code that we don't have a connector for, that's when you'd install it on a gateway, even if it's a cloud source somewhere.
Yeah, well, my is probably the easiest one. Just call the SAP and the HANA for Fabric works.
Easy.
I mean, that's because industry.
Yeah.
For the last 10 years, we went from the BW warehouse. All the industries are pretty much using this Germany-based frame. So how the Fabric gonna work? Still gateways and or mirroring or shortcuts.
We're not going to be mirroring.
Yeah, it's not going to be mirrored. Let's say
Well,
no.
There's a feedback item from mirroring.
SAP HANA?
Yeah. We haven't prioritized it, but it's definitely there. Backlog somewhere. I've seen it. Definitely there.
To know, Hannah, to know if we can get a CDC type
Yeah.
feed out of it,
do that.
what's changed.
I don't know. I don't think we can do that.
Typically with HANA customers have often been doing like direct query
Yep.
or import, so they can fire a big query. Would be dependent on can we get transaction changes.
Do you connect to HANA today? We have gateways. We go through gateways.
In direct query or import mode,
There's
and it works fine.
It works fine.
So it doesn't change with Fabric. You can still continue to do the same thing. So you don't have to go to direct lake.
Yeah.
Have to go to lake houses, but
Sometimes in BW, because they probably will build up like 20 years ago, the report that is BW, and sometimes we have a massive issue with the banks, so no one's gonna change that. So if it's just
You introduce something to get the data to Fabric. You know. Say, leave it alone.
side of the room. So there's a question down here.
Quick question around end-to-end lineage tracking. There's an option where you, usually in the data source side, you can manage lineage of what's changing. And then Power BI side, you have your data sets and workspaces. That's one of the recent releases, which is pretty good. But do we connect from a data set or semantic model to the tables and the views in the back end, the source layer? That an
Changed.
an option? No, as in is an option to create that link to a lineage view, or if yes, what are the approaches?
We would be your best option.
Yeah.
Separately, we're also working on enabling lineage at a lower grain. So currently you can only trace lineage at item level in Fabric. So if you go into Lakehouse, it'll tell you, hey, that Lakehouse is using, it won't tell you which table and which column. So that table and column level visibility is on the roadmap.
We have APIs for that today as well.
But that's only if it's in Lakehouse. If it's in other sites.
As long as it's on Fabric, any Fabric experience, they trace. But it's only at item level. So whether you're using Lakehouse, Warehouse, SQL, it won't tell you which individual tables using it. And that's something that's in the pipeline. So table and then column level.
Purview offers that.
Yeah.
Level of grain at an extra cost.
Today we are using Snowflake as our warehouse. Why should we consider moving to one lake?
Take that gap away. You had that question earlier. You answer that question.
Yeah, I can take it. Just no, at the end of the day, it's about code. Do the math and decide for yourself. But that depends on factors.
How you
Proof of concept, just what your data looks like this year. Yeah.
Long conversation
Yeah.
about this earlier.
That's why we deferred that
Yeah.
question to Mim, because I was getting lectured on
Yeah,
Snowflake.
that could
And
have-
Yeah, it's a very like I like Snowflake. Work from Microsoft. No, let's do the math.
Bonus.
That's it.
Don't use character.
Yeah, yeah. It's being
No,
recorded.
do the math. I have reason like if you ask me personally,
there is a reason to believe fabric will be cheaper. That you don't need to trust me, you have to do your.
There'll be cases where it's not.
Yes. And by the way, like if you are happy with direct query and you're getting, and it's okay, it's perfectly fine to keep using just Power BI.
Also exciting that we've announced this mirroring technology as well. That may provide benefits to you.
Yeah, there are options.
The fact that it's free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There are options.
But if you're using a lot of import mode models, you're not then dragging from Snowflake, you can drag from the mirror.
Yes.
So you're not continuously pulling large data sets across the line.
Also, like on Snowflake, if you see that your consumption, you're getting more users on Snowflake with mirroring, you can divert those users to Fabric, and you can keep your Snowflake the same size, whatever it's running on. Wrote some cost. I don't know how much the cost.
Yeah, but obviously, even in Fabric, it's not free.
So at the-
So just do proof of concept.
So at the moment, what you're saying, if I understand correctly, is that Fabric would be more cost effective if we are using direct query. Well, if we are using an import model, then with the data flow, where we are not kind of taking the data, we're not calling Snowflake every time we process the data, we are calling a data flow. In that case, again, it's going to be basically us doing the math. But from what I'm hearing is that direct query perhaps would be cheaper with.
No, it's never cheaper. No, that's not what I say. No, I assume that you are using direct query. What I'm saying is whatever you are using right now, for the cost, you can try to do mirroring, and an advantage is that the storage for mirroring is free, and you can just like import the data from Snowflake, and it's new read file, and from that you can use Direct Lake and see for yourself. I think it will be cheaper, but you have to test it yourself. Just do like proof of concept.
Bit of a two-in-one. You mentioned, Phil, that the semantic models are now Delta, stored as Delta under the hood. Was that correct?
Yeah, Delta tape.
The actual import mode ones as well?
Turn it on though. Right now, it's not on by default.
No.
You are talking about import.
Yeah.
So basically, all the storage underneath Delta is in the Delta format, like the Parquet with the Delta log.
Only if it's import though. Only the semantic models if they're import.
I got it, but like Delta is much newer technology than the original dataset / semantic model. So I was just wondering, did you guys actually have to go and like kind of copy from the kind of traditional VertiPack format into Delta under the hood? Like, did somebody actually have to do that?
VertiPack's still there. The data's still cached inside VertiPack. All we do is once data is being brought into VertiPack, we then push it out to Delta tables.
So it's kind of synced in a way.
Yeah, and that allows other Fabric compute engines to be able to read from that. They can't write from it. It creates a lakehouse for you to do things. But the original, the core VertiPack engine hasn't changed. Actually, I've been doing this for a couple of years. Every time you finish an import process on a semantic model, we'd actually take a backup of that to our private file store. But you don't see, you don't have access to it. And that makes it easy for us to do things like move the model around nodes, do all that cloud workload management. Because when we want to evict your model off a node that's getting hot from memory or CPU, we can just restore from the backup files that you don't see very quickly to somewhere else. Now, all that's changed really is we're now we're still doing that, but we're now also backing up to a lakehouse that you can see and make use of and do interesting things with. So.
What's your plan for Synapse analytics? So say, for example, I mean, if you guys can share, obviously. So say, for example, if we have got it on our in our environment and Fabric has also got Synapse, how's the migration gonna work? Is there any plan, or are we going to pay twice?
No. You keep using Synapse.
Yeah.
Not deprecating it. We're not rid of it. It's just that the future is Fabric. You may not see lots of innovation. You may not see more updates, Synapse. You'll see it all in Fabric. Keep using it. We are in discussions about how you can come from Synapse to Fabric. We don't have details right now.
So with Fabric, every month we produce a blog that explains all the things we've released or changed or updated in the last month. I think it's running at about 65 pages at the moment.
Too long.
Yeah, it's too long. you're not going to see a 65-page document released for updates to Synapse Link. So
Just a follow-up question on it though. So are you suggesting customers to basically stop creating assets on Synapse or?
Yeah. But if you're starting new projects, you should look at Fabric. I mean, I tell all my customers that I talk to, if you're starting a brand new project, take a look at Fabric, don't look at Synapse, because our innovation, our development is focused on Fabric.
And they're the easiest ones to do, actually, is to start new things in Fabric. There's not much to worry about. But when you've got existing projects set up that you want to then consider migrating to Fabric, that's when it gets a little bit more interesting and complex. But how do I replace this workload here, and when do we cut across, and how does that work? But yeah, certainly new stuff is very easy. It's possible to migrate. It's just more challenging. We're working on different ways to make that easier. And
Last follow-up question. Is that,
Give him a prize.
you're not gonna, is that being communicated officially to the customers, or is that on some of the web page where we can?
We've been told that, and we just relay it to you.
No, there's actually, but on a serious note, there is actually, if you go to Bing, there's actually a blog by the CVP for engineering. He actually talks about Synapse and the future and everything. So we're not deprecating anything. That blog actually goes into full detail. Like where we're heading with Synapse.
Use Bing and ask Copilot,
all that.
Somebody else had a question. Yes.
At the moment, if you want to connect using Golang to the Fabric warehouse, the driver is not available. Thank you. Available, it seems. And if you want to use the current SQL driver, it asks for enterprise application. It doesn't detect the tenant ID and client ID. So Fabric does not appear as a service inside the Azure portal. So how can we register Fabric as a enterprise application?
I'll follow that question, to be honest with you.
In order to connect to a warehouse through Golang language.
The way you're running that Golang, like you must be running in some sort of runtime environment. Are you running inside a container or
It's a let's say it's on-prem environment. There's currently no specific driver to connect to the Fabric.
Again, on Fabric, we got warehouse, we got lakehouse. Which specific?
I tried both the warehouse or lakehouse.
The SQL endpoint.
Yep, the SQL endpoint, but it says that it can't connect directly because it's missing the tenant ID and the client ID.
Okay, so that should be solvable. Like that shouldn't be a problem. You can email me directly and we can have an offline chat.
Yeah, it's fair, but it's add one thing. There is an authentication process.
Yes.
An app.
It could be access
your details, and then you get the token. You pass that token, you get the authentication.
It's supposed to use the MFA in order to connect, but when you use it, it opens the browser, but it does not work. It asks for the
Email him.
Yeah, he'll
help you.
It was me. Sorry.
She's had her hand up a long time. You the glasses, yeah.
So just about the licensing, like we have recently upgrading to thank you like premium capacity. And like just after the Fabric introduced, like do you think it's any like best way I can convince my boss to keep investing in the Fabric licensing, or any like cool stuff I can show them?
Show you.
We're about to
show you
some stuff up.
Yeah.
So we've got time for a couple more questions. Any
This
kind
one-
of cue
there's
questions?
one over there. No.
Does Adam really snore?
Yeah.
The whole list of questions.
We will be hanging around at the end of the session for a little bit too as well. So
Quite an open-ended question. So for your enterprise customers who have pretty mature Power BI landscapes with widely used semantic models, powering a whole lot of the reports in the state, what are the most exciting things, and so what are you seeing for those kinds of customers with all these changes in Fabric? You already have that established.
I think because enterprise customers are often aren't the most.
Most interesting.
Yeah, like
Enterprise customers aren't the most advantageous. They don't move fast.
So what would you recommend for your enterprise customers with all of these changes? What are you seeing as the big game changing?
One Lake and Direct Lake is the.
Yeah, for me personally, like usually I care much about direct lake. I was very happy with the import. There was a case where I had like people.
We have a lot of import. So.
Yeah, like I have a table which like nearly like half, like in the millions, and happen is usually to do the import. It's a pain and take a lot of time and import. And then I found that I can just run like Spark query, and it's available in 5 minutes. And that was like for me, yeah, that's the click. And then I said, you know what? I'm not going back. Not like, but having said that, if you have like small data, it doesn't really matter.
Volume.
Yes, especially either large volume or data that change a lot is a pain for the import, or even worse, like change data that change a lot and it's big. That's like direct lake is that. And there is another advantage. One of the biggest issue with import is that the data is coupled with the semantic model. So we end up with weird situation is that if you have like say slightly like multiple model and they share some table, the only way to do it, you end up with duplicating data. That with direct lake, because model is just logical, there is like there's no import. So you can have just one storage, let's say 20 table, and then you can have like 5 or 6 or whatever semantic model, and there is no duplication. So for me, that's really, especially in enterprise environment, you know, with import, like we have, can become like a mess easily. And direct lake, I think it's a big advantage.
Yeah, so I actually do have a customer that's got, they've built like a central, is our golden model, and now they let their business users create composite models by adding extra tables. Running the performance issues, because if you put a big table and create a join, you get cross island joins, so it sends these huge ins. And direct lake, exploring direct lake with them, because we can now create a lake house and shortcut those things and create a single logical model that doesn't have to do these cross island queries. And reuse those tables and reuse that golden model. Unfortunately, we don't have a way of inheriting measures and relationships yet.
Yeah, that's a data.
But you can get all of the data.
So one more, 2 more questions. Sorry. Oh, okay. These 2.
So user had a Power BI Pro license and able to see the users metrics report, but now it's in the premium capacity, free premium capacity, and won't be able to see the users metric report.
Trying to get a handle on what changed. Yeah.
So you know, able to see the users metric. Yeah. When we right click on the report, user had a Power BI Pro license, able to see, but now like he's using now free license, premium free license, and won't be able to see that option there.
If they're free
license, free license.
Your viewer.
Yeah. Is it in a premium capacity? Did you put it in a?
The workspace is not in the premium.
So then they can't see it.
It should be. A workspace should be in the premium capacity.
For free users.
Free users can only access premium.
What I did, like we had a governance there. So I asked him to, you won't be able to create a workspace. So we added in AD groups, workspace AD group. I told him to create a new workspace, put report there, and then he's able to see somehow.
He's the owner.
Yeah.
Last question.
Feels moving.
Right at the back.
So rude. We got so many. So after we finish, we'll answer more questions. Is that okay? Is it okay? Is it okay? Yeah. Okay. Oh, promise.
On this side.
Yeah, it's gonna play. It should just play the audio.
I hope it does as well. I haven't tested it.
There's three though. There's three. So there's three co-pilots. I don't know if we should watch the one for data warehouse. I think we should skip that one.
Skip this one?
Or play it. Just play it. I don't care. Just play it.
We're integrating Copilot everywhere in Fabric to help everyone both upskill and become more productive with data. I'm excited to share a few new Copilot experiences in Fabric that are coming to public preview. First, we're adding a Copilot for data warehousing. Here I am in a data warehouse, and I can open up the Copilot task pane right away. I could ask questions here, but we're also integrating Copilot contextually in the experience as well. For example, there are a few shared queries in the database that I didn't create, and I don't really understand what they do. Now I can just ask Copilot to explain the query, and it adds comments letting me know what's going on. In this case, the query is calculating average fare amounts for each day of the week. Copilot can also help me with SQL I'm trying to write. I've been trying to get a query working to calculate the top 10 cities in my data with the hottest weather, but I'm getting an error. Fortunately, I can ask Copilot to fix my query with just one click, which it does by adding a halving condition to part of the query. And now my query runs with no issue. Of course, I can also use Copilot to help me write queries from scratch. Let's ask for a new query to bucket trips by how big the tip was for each trip. And just like that, I have the SQL code for the query, and I can run it to see the results. I can also ask support questions relative to Fabric, such as understanding my security options for this database. And I get a rich natural language result to help me understand all of my options. And finally, I can work right in the query editor, and Copilot will help with suggesting code based on my comments. For example, here I'm looking for the busiest holiday based on total rides. With a click, I can accept the Copilot suggestion and run the query. And now I have the results. As you can see, Copilot in Data Warehouse is a great way to both help upskill individuals as well as being a huge boost in productivity. Next, I want to show you how Copilot is coming into Power BI Desktop. Within Desktop, Copilot is being built in to help with tasks across modeling, report authoring, and finding insights. Let's start by taking a look at how Copilot can help me work with the DAX language in my semantic model. To start, let's switch over to the new DAX query view. Now, DAX can be a complicated language, and in this case, I've opened up a model that I didn't create, so there's lots of DAX measures here I don't necessarily understand. For example, there is this adjusted net sales measure that I might want to get up to speed on. This is a great task for Copilot. If I look at the measure and where it's referenced in the model, I can just ask Copilot, what do these measures do? And Copilot will look at the measures in the model and then provide a rich natural language description of the DAX. I can expand this and scroll down and see a good summary that explains what each measure is doing. And I can also ask Copilot for help getting started with DAX in general, such as asking what is the difference between sum and SUMX. But I can also use Copilot to just simply take some of the drudgery out of writing DAX. I could ask to see all of the analysis DAX measures by product. This isn't hard DAX to write, but it would take some time. Instead, with Copilot, I have the code in seconds. And of course, I can use Copilot to write my own DAX measures as well. I always struggle to create ranking functions in DAX, so let's ask Copilot to define a new measure to rank products by the lowest return rate. And just like that, Copilot has defined the measure with great comments so I can see what's going on, and I can execute the measure and see the results. So Copilot in the DAX query view is a huge boost to my productivity, but we're also bringing Copilot for report authoring into Desktop as well. With Copilot, I can ask general questions about what's in my data, as well as to ask for suggestions on what type of report pages I might want to add. Let's use this first suggestion, but I'm going to adjust the prompt slightly to see performance across different stores over time with net sales, units sold, and return rates. And just like that, Copilot has built a full Power BI report page for me with the data I requested. This is a great starting point to making edits here in Desktop, and I can quickly ask for additional pages. Let's get a page to compare net sales and return rates. And Copilot wants a little more info, so I'm going to ask for by store and over time, and again, in moments I have another report page. Fabric is just getting going with these Copilot integrations, but as you can see, with Copilot everywhere in Fabric, we can uniquely accelerate everyone's productivity with data, and we're excited to bring even more capabilities to you soon.
Awesome.
So no, Copilot is not going to take away your jobs. It's going to take parts of your job and make you more productive.
Strawberry ticket. We're going to give you this video.
Bean-based?
Bean? No, this.
So Copilot license.
Yeah, I get it.
Next, I want to show you how Copilot is coming into Power BI Desktop.
I think we just saw
Within
this.
Desktop, Copilot is being built in to help with tasks.
Twice. Sorry.
Had a long flight over. Oh, forgive me. I did come all this way just for this user group, so.
Tasks across modeling, report authoring, and finding insights.
I'll find the.
Where's next?
Next. I have a next key.
Arrow.
Arrow.
What time? Okay. Yeah.
We're up to
the next. Yeah, that's one.
Yeah.
Put the same one again.
Tell I don't use this very often. Cancel that. I can't find the.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. You got to talk to you because that question blew my mind. I'm still stuck on your question.
Mine.
You know him. He knows. Go ahead.
Let's start by taking a look at how Copilot can.
No, I think it's the same one. Yeah, one video is just a long video of all of them.
Yeah, I think that was.
All right, so we're done. We're good. We're done.
Yeah, we're done. I got one video.
I thought there was 3.
No. There's one video for all of them. So we watched all 3 in one video.
Yeah, so as I said, it's not going to take a job. So that's pretty much all we have tonight. As I said, we are going to stick around for questions.
So Reza tells us we have to leave.
I think there might still be some pizza out there. Thank you to Patrick for coming all this way. It's really nice to have him here in person. Definitely Mim, Amanjeet and Darren for coming over. We are planning to come back next year, as I said, with lots of updates, and we're looking forward to hearing more about your journey with Fabric because it's a pretty exciting time to be here.
Can we answer just like 1 or 2 more questions before you wrap up?
Yeah.
There's a few more. Oh, she was here. Yeah, she was here.
Currently, what we have got is like a generic data pipeline, and to schedule it, we can only schedule it once with the set of parameters. So if we have to actually replicate it with the different parameters, we have to just clone that and pass the parameters. So is there any feature in roadmap where we can actually just schedule the same existing data pipeline with multiple parameters? Like there used to be a feature in Data Factory, something like trigger. That's exactly what I'm looking for in data pipeline. Are there any plans to have that? Without that, we are just duplicating a lot of pipelines with the same workflow.
And you want it to run in parallel?
Yes, so majority of those are scheduled at the same time.
It's the same workflow. You just pass a different parameter in and.
Yeah, and just copied n number of times at the.
That feedback.
Well, I mean, I can loop
One of the
through,
product teams aware of it.
but I can loop through, but it's going to be sequential, right? It's going to happen. Right?
But we need it at this similar time because think like it's like coming from a Kafka, which is a stream, and we have to replay the same pipeline to ingest the data into our alien. And
Use a pipeline to call a pipeline. You can't call the same pipeline over and over in it and put it in a container.
we actually didn't try that. So
Didn't work.
no, it didn't, because it will just loop over the same parameters, and it's a pipeline parameter. So you can't just pass that as activity output. Next one.
You should email us and then we'll ask somebody who probably knows the answer to that.
Yeah.
A couple of questions if time allows. Another one is around the workspace environment. At the moment, we are deploying it with the manual, like uploading our wheel packaging and then configuring with the different node configs. So are there any features in roadmap to automate that so we can do end-to-end CI/CD?
Integration for environments coming.
There, it's there.
Is it already live?
Yeah, environments are there. Environments are there.
This shows us like unsupported for workspace
And
environment.
it's being rolled out. It's coming. So we added 4 new items that we announced. Environments was one of them. So it's coming.
Okay. And the last one is some of the features, which is like data activator or Copilot, they can be only turned on at tenancy level. So are there anything in plan to enable at workspace level? Because we want to test that in test or dev.
No. And so you got a consensus.
I got 5 answers there.
To expand on that a little bit, we are looking at building surge protection, which will be a feature that will allow you to custom defined some limits on the different workloads.
Resource governing effectively.
Yeah.
To stop one person doing.
Stop people running away wild. So it won't be switch off, but you will be able to set limits in the future. So they're still defining that.
It's like,
How do companies test this in their dev and test environments before rolling it up to production? Because that's a challenge we are having to convince security on enabling it for production directly without testing.
I can answer because I before I joined Microsoft, like I did, and it's very simple. Like you just put a security group or what they're doing. Test it and nothing happened. Turn it on. That's what happens. Very simple.
there's a tenant setting that nobody talks about. You can say workspace. Who can create workspaces? Go to that tenant setting and only allow people that you trust to create workspaces. And then those people would only add people they trust to do the testing. That's where you start.
Okay.
That's absolutely where you start.
Sound like IT, just look at me.
Mim hates me because I am IT.
No,
Lock it down. Yeah, lock it down. Because nobody looks at their tenant setting. They just say everyone in the organization create workspaces. No, that's what's happening at Microsoft. How many workspaces do we have at Microsoft?
At least four.
10 million, whatever the maximum is. That's how many we have. You only trust certain people to create workspaces. That's how you do testing. Then you spin up small capacities, F2s, F4s. When you're not testing, pause them so you can save money.
There is also that tenant setting Mim was talking about that says users can create Fabric items.
Yeah.
And you can set that to a security group as well. So you can get a small team of testers to try it out. Say, here's how it works, how much CUs it consumed.
You touched on capacity. At the moment, only way to turn on and turn off capacity is via Azure portal by click or REST APIs.
Yeah.
So will there be any feature directly within capacity APIs where we can automate it? Because what we are doing is like hacking it via either Azure functions or data pipelines to turn on and turn off.
There's a lady in Norway who created a list of PowerShell. Do it. I have to find it and put it somewhere. Do a video.
Do it with logic apps as well.
You can do logic apps as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I like PowerShell better.
Because we are doing it via data pipeline and
We'll find it.
into the
We'll
premium.
find it. New video. Yes. One more question and then we have to go. I'm not picking the last question. I'm not gonna be the most handy person in.
Super quick one for Patrick, the couple of updates for the matrix visual.
I have no idea. No idea. I'm just being honest. I have no idea. There's Miguel Myers is working on, I mean, you already know, he's working on all these.
Tag him on LinkedIn.
Yeah, he'll tell you. He will absolutely tell
Have
you.
him on LinkedIn, we already had the conversation.
Yeah.
It's good to see it's coming. Hopefully everyone's found this useful and learnt a lot. There's this huge amount of knowledge and information in this room. Thank you all for coming again. It looks like Reza, you got to wrap up.
Yes, let's take a picture. Let's take one big picture.
This way.
We can like picture maybe.
Just like we'll stand and then somebody can get like a selfie or something like that. Everybody can look that way. If you don't mind, that'd be great. Yeah.
How we would see the photo number.
How much do you love Fabric?
Okay. 1, 3. 1, 3. We're gonna say yo. 1, 2, 3. Yo. All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate
it. Daniel, a few things before you all leave. First, need QR code to exit the building. Building without QR code. If you don't have it, check your emails. We have sent out. If you don't have the QR code, you cannot exit the building. So check your emails. We have sent it to you. Or find Indira or Daniel, take a photo of the QR code from us. That's one thing. There are still pizza left, so go and help yourself. But we have to leave the building in about 10 minutes. A special thanks to these guys come from Atlanta. A special thanks to Daniel here, our host from Microsoft. If you have any questions about Snowflake, we got Regan over on that side. He can be your Snowflake person. And thank you all for coming. See you next time.
Thank you.